Hey, welcome back. Today, I want to have a proper conversation with you regarding AI and how it's being augmented into the IT department, particularly from the sense of governance. So it's just a conversation. It's not a lecture, which is why I've got my tea here. Not a presentation, just a straight talk about something I've been watching happen inside IT departments for the last 3 years and what it means for anyone who makes their living recruiting within this arena. Because I've had some fascinating conversations recently with recruitment directors, founders of tech agencies, in-house talent leads at some serious organizations, and a pattern keeps coming up. Everyone senses that something has changed. The briefs feel different, the candidates feel different, the conversations with clients feel different. But when I ask people to articulate what actually has changed, there's often a pause. And that pause is what this edition is really all about. Now, let me take you back, not too far back, 5 or 6 years ago. If you were recruiting into an IT department at that point, that the world was relatively clear. You had your infrastructure team, the people keeping the lights on, the managing the servers, networks, hardware. You had your development teams, they were writing code, shipping features. You had your security function, your data teams, your support desk, your project managers, and your BAs sitting somewhere in between. There were nice, distinct disciplines, relatively clear skill requirements. You knew what a strong infrastructure CV looked like. You knew what a good developer looked like. The lanes were clearly defined, and the recruiters who hired them knew exactly what they were hiring for. Now, back in the day with training, I used to describe this as a series of rooms in a house. Each room had its own furniture, its own rules, its own occupants. You recruited for the kitchen or you recruited for the living room or the basement server room. You didn't know what was happening in every room, just the one that you were working on, which is why historically tech recruiters have become expert at a particular vertical. Um, the model served technical recruiters really well for a long time, and we know that. And then AI arrived, and it didn't knock on the front door, but it came through every window of that house simultaneously. Now, that is the change that I think is most significant and most underappreciated for you leading tech recruitment teams. AI is not a tool that sits in one team's toolkit, it is a capability that has embedded itself across every discipline in all of the IT departments at the same time. And when that happens, the walls between those rooms start to dissolve. Think about what that actually looks like in practice. So your developer is now writing code with an AI assistant, GitHub, Copilot, Cursor, one of the many that are appearing every day. Your data engineer is building retrieval systems that feed large language models. Suddenly, they need to understand how AI consumes data, not just how databases store the data. Your cloud engineer is provisioning GPU-based workloads to run AI services, a conversation that simply didn't exist even 3 years ago. Your security engineer is defending against AI powered attacks while simultaneously trying to deploy AI powered defenses. Your BA is using AI to draft requirements, generate process maps, and summarize stakeholder inputs. Every discipline, every team, every role has been affected. And here's the consequence that flows directly from that. When a developer needs to understand AI generated code, and a security engineer needs to understand AI driven threats, and a data engineer needs to understand how models consume information, those disciplines start to overlap in ways that they never did before. Does that make sense? The walls between the rooms are dissolving. I was speaking with a CTO at a fintech firm a while back, brilliant operator, ran a department of about 120 people, and he said something really insightful to me. I've thought about it many times since. He said, Ayub, I've stopped thinking about my team as a collection of specialisms. I've started to think about them as a collection of judgment calls. The AI handles more and more of the execution, and what I need now are people who can supervise it, challenge it, and take accountability when things go wrong. This is not a niche view. This is the direction of travel. And for recruiters, it raises a very uncomfortable question. If the client is no longer primarily hiring for execution, if they're hiring for judgment, oversight, accountability, does your current screening process even measure that? Now, to understand where your clients are right now, I want to give you a framework I use when I'm training recruitment teams as we go into this new era. So, every major technology wave produces a predictable enterprise response. I call it the adoption cycle, and it goes like this. So, first comes the wow phase. This is experimentation. We've all done it. Someone in the team discovers ChatGPT or Copilot lands in their Office 365, and suddenly everyone's playing with it. The energy is high, the governance is low. And this is where most organizations were around 2023. Then comes the panic phase. This is the moment most leadership realizes the scale of what is happening. Data leakages arise and the risks associated with that, security vulnerabilities, employees using tools on sensitive company information without any policies in place. The headlines start appearing, the board starts asking questions. Then comes governance, risk frameworks, acceptable user policies, all these things relating to AI ethics and guidelines. Procurement processes for approved tools suddenly have to kick in. This is where a huge number of enterprise organizations are right now in 2026. The EU AI Act is driving it from a regulatory angle. Every serious organization is building or should be building policies around AI use. And then comes hiring, which is where you and I come in. Because you can't govern when you don't have people who know how to govern. You can't execute an AI strategy without the technical talent to deliver it. The hiring phase is where the vacancies are generated. And right now, a significant portion of enterprise IT hiring is being driven by governance. Risk roles, compliance roles, AI governance leads, security specialists who understand the AI threat landscape. These are not speculative future roles. Your clients are briefing for them now. Now, I want you to think about this, and I want to stay on governance for a moment because I think it is quite huge. I think this is the area that recruitment leaders are most underestimating right now in terms of what it means for hiring. When we talk about AI governance inside an IT department, most people picture a policy document, a set of rules about which tools are approved and which aren't. And yes, that's part of it, of course. But the governance challenge inside enterprise IT right now is far more complex, far messier, far more nuanced, and actually far more interesting than a policy document. Let me give you the real picture. The first problem is really shadow AI. Data inside most organizations don't sit in one clean, unified place. It sits in silos. Finance has its data. Operations has its data. The development team has its data. When AI gets deployed across the silos without central oversight, and it's being deployed without central oversight in many organizations currently, you get AI models running on partial, inconsistent information. Teams are adopting tools that IT leadership doesn't even know exist. Shadow AI. It's happening everywhere. And it is a governance nightmare that creates its own hiring demand. The second problem is the gap between security and compliance. Security teams focus on access controls. Compliance teams focus on data minimization. And somewhere in the gap between them, data is leaking through AI prompts. Nobody owns that gap. And the risks, they sit there quietly until something goes wrong. Organizations are now actively hiring people who can sit across both disciplines, and those people are actually quite hard to find. The third problem is speed. AI technology is evolving much faster than most IT departments can write controls for it. By the time a policy is formulated, the tool it was written for has already been superseded by something else. It's crazy. Development cycles are moving faster than governance frameworks can follow. And that gap between rapid deployment and long-term control is where significant amount of enterprise risk is sitting right now. And closing that gap, again, requires people. And that's why I think of this particular area as being a black box problem. When an AI system makes a high stakes decision, a credit decision, a hiring recommendation, a security alert, and maybe it's a black box that you've bought in, and someone asks why. Well, the honest answer in many organizations will be, we don't fully know. No single team owns the explainability question. And that creates legal and reputational liability. And that keeps CIOs and CTOs awake at night. Architects who understand explainability frameworks are becoming genuinely valuable. And what is an explainability framework? It basically is understanding how the AI system works, why it made the decision it made. You need to understand that. Someone needs to put that in place so that we have full transparency and insight into how that AI system works. That is a live hiring conversation in regulated industries happening right now. Pharmaceuticals, finance. This should be happening right now. That's the other problem. And finally, and this one really surprises people, there is the infrastructure problem. AI models have an enormous physical footprint. The compute power, the energy consumption, the thermal management requirements, organizations that have made sustainability commitments are quietly resting with the fact that their AI ambitions and their environmental targets are pulling in opposite directions. Now, that's a governance conversation as much as a technical one. And it's generating demand for cloud engineers who can optimize AI workloads sustainably. So you can see how this all ties in. How does this matter to you as a recruiter? Because every single one of those problems generates a vacancy. The shadow AI problem needs an AI governance lead. The security compliance gap needs specialists who sit across both disciplines. That black box problem needs architects who understand explainability. The infrastructure problem needs cloud engineers who can think about sustainably operating and giving peak performance with that. These are the briefs that informed recruiters are already picking up and that underprepared ones are struggling to properly qualify. So let me walk you through each discipline briefly. It's written in the newsletter as well, but I just want to get this across for those of you who are much more video oriented. So developers still writing code, but now supervising AI that writes a first draft. The premium skill has shifted from syntax production to system design, security awareness, and the ability to validate what the AI has given you as code. A GitHub Copilot study showed 55.8% productivity improvement, of course, but when leadership sees the numbers, the conversations change from productivity to operating model. And when operating models change, team structures change. Coding. Security, a discipline under extraordinary pressure. AI is being used by attackers now to generate more sophisticated, more personalized, faster moving threats. At the same time, though, security teams are deploying AI to defend against those threats. The result is an arms race and a talent shortage that is severe and getting worse. Data, perhaps the most structurally transformed discipline of all. Every AI system runs on data, vector databases, retrieval architectures, a data grounding for large language models. Your data engineers and architects are now building the foundations that every AI system in that organization depends on. The data team has gone from being a reporting function to being a strategic infrastructure team. That's important. Let's talk about cloud and infrastructure. GPU provisioning for AI workloads is a must now. So cost optimization for compute intensive AI systems is all the rage. Infrastructure engineers are now managing a layer of the stack that again didn't exist 3 years ago. Even think about support. AI handles first line triage now. The tickets that used to occupy a junior support analyst are being deflected by AI. What remains is escalation management, AI monitoring, complex issue resolution. The volume of routine work is compressing, but the complexity of what's left over is increasing in support. You can see where this is all going. Let's talk about the functional roles, BAs and PMs, documentation, requirements, status reports, risk logs are all of this can be generated at least in a draft version by AI. So the human role is shifting towards judgment again. Which stakeholder assumption is wrong? Which requirement doesn't actually reflect what the business truly needs? Which risks has the AI not flagged up? The pattern across all of this is consistent. Execution accelerates, oversight expands, judgment becomes the premium. So here's where I want to land this. Most recruiters, and I say this with genuine respect for the profession, because I've dedicated my career to coaching you guys and teaching you for over 24 years. Most recruiters in IT are currently operating with a mental model of the IT department that is now out of date. Not because of not because they're not good at their job, but because nobody has given them a structured way to update it. And here's the opportunity that creates. The recruiter who walks into a client meeting and can map the AI augmented IT department, who can explain why the developer role has changed, why security is under pressure, why governance is driving its own hiring demand, why data has become strategic now. That recruiter is having a completely different conversation to their competitors. They're no longer order taking, they are conversing, they're advising. And the client who gets that advisory conversation will not be ringing your competitors next month. They'll be ringing you. That is what this series and our training and our coaching is all about, really. Not AI buzzwords, not service level awareness. It's actually structurally understanding the context behind IT recruitment. And if you want to position yourself and your consultants in that way, just reach out because this is what it's going to be all about. Guys, addition to, I just lay this out in the newsletter for those of you who love to read this stuff. Subscribe, share, of course, make sure all your consultants and all your team members are subscribed to this newsletter because this is a big one. Work through it together because this is not, as I said, passive reading material. It's something you really want to understand. It's a briefing series. Of course, I'm going to say it again. April 3rd is when I'm going to go live for about an hour on LinkedIn Live. It's going to be 10 a.m. UK time rather than 3 p.m., which I previously said because of more people around the world trying to get into that slot. So we figured that 10 a.m. might be the best way. Come with your thoughts, your comments, comment below. And by the way, if you want to know more about the LinkedIn Live, if you want to be updated when that goes live, just comment live in the comments section below. As always, recruit with credibility and passion, and I shall see you in the next edition. All the best.